Welcome everyone to this webinar brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Habitchonistim. IDSF is a movement of reserve officers and operators from all branches of Israel Defense Establishment who believe that strong national security priorities and staunch Zionism are necessary for Israel to be the eternal homeland of the Jewish people. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into these war briefings. It is very important to us at IDSF that we can share with you war updates and analysis about this war in Israel, and that we can connect our experts with you in these very candid briefings. We are joined today by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, the founder and chairman of IDSF, who hopefully you've gotten to know well over these number of weeks. And we're also joined by Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser, who served as the head of the research division of the Israel Defense Force Military Intelligence Division and Director General of the Israel Ministry of Strategic Affairs. And he is currently the Director of IDSF Research. It's a great privilege to have General Kuperwasser with us. We'll begin with General Avivi. Are you able to kindly share an update right now, what's happening in the war?
Yes, Moshe, definitely. We are reaching a very delicate moment in the war. On one hand, the IDF is now closing on really the heart of the terror inside the northern part of Gaza, Jabalia. Most of the terrorists that were fighting us in the different areas around the Gaza city retreated into two main areas, Jabalia and Sajaiya, which is in the east part of the Gaza city. So really destroying these two strongholds is the key to finish taking over the northern part of Gaza. We're still not there, and the fight is fierce. The IDF announced that it completely surrounded Jabalia place, and now we're starting to go in, and the fighting is going to be fierce. It's a very complicated warfare. At the same time, there are a lot of talks about a hostage deal. The hostage deal, Cooper probably will talk about it at length. Hamas really needs a few days of ceasefire. The way I look at it, I think that before finishing to take over the northern part, this will be devastating for the IDF. And my suggestion to the cabinet is not do a ceasefire now, not until we take over all of the north. And this is being discussed. Hamas obviously wants to stop now before we destroy them in the north. I don't think this is what we should do. When we do destroy Hamas in the north, anyway, we'll have a few days to organize our troops before they go to the south. Then it seems to me there might be a window for some hostage negotiation if it will really happen, because we cannot really trust Hamas and we don't know really what their intentions are. Now, in this context, what is interesting to see that at the moment, both Hamas and Hezbollah don't really believe that we are actually going to destroy Hamas. So Hezbollah is looking at it and saying to Hamas, listen, guys, all you need to do is survive. Make sure that you exist at the end of this war, like I did in 2006. And as long as this is the situation, Hezbollah says we are doing our part. We managed to really evacuate many Israelis from the north. The Israeli army needs to leave many divisions in the north, and these divisions are not fighting in the south. We're shooting, we're doing things, and it's good enough, providing that Hamas is not destroyed. The question is, what will happen when the IDF will start maneuvering south, and it will be more obvious that actually we do intend to destroy Hamas. Then there will be a moment when Hezbollah will have to take the decision. Are we going to let Hamas be destroyed, or are we going into war? It's an Iranian decision. It's a Hezbollah decision. It's not an easy decision, but this will be the moment that we'll see where all this is going. So really, things can change dramatically in the coming weeks in Israel. And we might see Hezbollah also joining this war. But we have to see. Where all this is going. I would say that overall the motivation in the army is really high. The society is strong. In many economical areas in Israel, so long as Hezbollah is not in war, things partially went back to normal. You see much more traffic, building sites that are starting to work, and so on. And we'll have to see where all this is going. So, Moshe, I would like you to really pass it to Cooper, and sure he has a lot of interesting updates.
For sure. So thank you, General Cooper Wasser, for joining us. I think this is the first time you're joining this set of briefings. It's a great pleasure to have you. And a lot of our viewers are very curious about the hostages and the impending discussions that are happening in the government. But before we get to that, if we can, because this is your first time joining and our audience being able to hear you, you had a very important article that you wrote towards the beginning of the war about how Israel was not ready on 3 levels: strategic, operational, and tactical. If you could just kind of explain that a bit, and kind of what we're up to now. Are we ready, or are we still kind of lagging behind? And then we'll talk about the hostages.
Well, you remind me of things I wrote a long time ago. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I see so many people are turned in, so it's great to have such a good and wide audience. Regarding those 3 levels of surprise that we had, what I said was that actually we misunderstood the Hamas. We thought Hamas was deterred, and this was a strategic mistake. And we thought that Gaza is a chronic, limited problem that we can handle, even if there's an eruption of violence once in a while. And that our main goal should be to have the longer possible distance interval between the eruptions. And we totally ignored the fact that Hamas was totally committed to destroying Israel and to carrying out this attack. And by the way, the Habitchonistim, the IDSF, has warned about it again and again. I personally wrote a piece, not in Habitchonistim, in a different context, about the need to have a national security discussion about Gaza and to adopt a different strategy towards Gaza that would put in the center the demilitarization of Gaza and disarming Gaza. This was the name of my article that I published in the Middle East Forum. For those of you who follow it in the Middle East Quarterly, and as a product of the Middle East Forum. So there was a need to adopt a different attitude to what's going on in Gaza and to understand that Hamas has not changed its colors. It's still committed to carrying out an attack. And what we had to do because of this strategic understanding was to adopt a different policy and a different strategy, but also to think, and this is on the operational level, to think, so, okay, if they are committed to destroying us, what is going to be the way they are going to choose in order to make it happen, provided that we have managed to make it difficult for them to do it in the old ways that they were planning to do that. They had a plan back in 2014 of doing exactly what they did now, but through the underground tunnels that they were constructing. And we were aware of this plan between 2014 and 2016, and this is why we invested so much in building the wall that prevented them from being able from using the tunnels. And after we did that, instead of sitting down with red teams and whatever you do in intelligence in order to think what is going to be the next trick they're going to use in order to achieve their goal, we were under the impression that they were out of options, because we deal quite efficiently with the rockets, we deal quite efficiently with the tunnels, we know what to do about attack UAVs, and we know what to do about their torpedoes and all kinds of naval weaponry that they were developing, so we can take a rest. Instead of thinking, so what are they going to do? And this was the operational problem, because we didn't have the plan, we didn't understand what is going to be the plan, we didn't connect the tactical, on the tactical level, the expressions of something strange happening was not connected with a plan that we didn't know that was there, and we didn't think of, and that's why we were surprised on the night, even though we did have all kinds of small indications that something is cooking. We didn't know to what to connect it, and we thought of something that is limited in scale instead of something as big as we saw. And on top of that, there were other problems with the intelligence that made us fall asleep. But the strategic level mistake was doubled by the fact that because we thought Hamas is deterred, we thought they are now much more focused on improving the living conditions in Gaza. And by the fact that we were able to take care of their concerns by allowing 18,000 laborers to enter from Gaza into Israel and to allow the Qatari money pour in, we were under the impression that, okay, there's nothing to worry about. They are deterred. They don't have a plan. They are happy campers because we gave them what they needed on the economic side. Let's go to sleep. And this was the mistake I understand that we were experiencing. And it's puzzling because at the same time, we in the Bitronist team, we were repeatedly saying for more than a year now, I think almost 2 years, we were saying that strategically speaking, the situation is becoming more and more difficult and more dangerous. We were talking about the fact that we are actually cooked like a frog. The temperature in the pot is getting higher and higher, and we just tell ourselves everything is all right. And an explosion is coming, and we wrote a full book about it, and made a national security assessment, and that was presented to everybody. And we were warning about this development. And the intelligence did warn about the same development in a different context. They came up to the conclusion that something like that is happening because of the internal rift in Israel, the difficulties at home because of the protests and all of that. And they came also to that conclusion. But while they came to this conclusion, they never derived any lessons from this conclusion. That okay, so for this conclusion, you should be on alert. So if you say that there is a possibility that Hamas is going to do something, break your head. What is Hamas going to do? Maybe you cannot anymore say that Hamas is deterred. And that brought a major break in the entire national security concept, because our national security concept was based on 4 pillars, and 3 of them collapsed because of this mistake. First of all, we were not able to give early warning. This was the major element in our national security concept. We didn't provide the early warning that we were expected to provide, and because of that, we were caught by surprise. Secondly, we were not deterring the enemy. The deterrence is the second pillar that was failing miserably. We didn't deter them. We were deterred by them. We were deterred by the fact that we don't want to govern Gaza. Maybe not by Hamas, but also by understanding that entering Gaza and changing the situation in Gaza is going to cost the lives of hundreds of soldiers, and we were not ready to pay the price. In my paper that I wrote about it, I said we should be ready to pay the price, because if we don't pay the price we are going to pay because of Hamas operation is going to be much higher, which is exactly what's happened. And but we didn't deter Hamas, that's clear, and we didn't defend our people, our population were not defended by the IDF. It took so long for the IDF to really take control of the situation that it's frustrating. So that was something that would force us to have a full revision of our national security concept and base it much less about an early warning and base it much more on deterrence and our capability to defend ourselves. And this is going to cost us a lot of effort and resources and manpower. And the one thing that was left out of this national security concept is the decisiveness, the ability to decide wars. And that's what we are trying to do right now. And I'm quite convinced that we are going to do it successfully, because what we've seen so far from the performance of the IDF in the northern part of Gaza and in handling Hezbollah in the north is quite impressive and successful. They work very cautiously, they work very determinedly. And that's how we managed to actually take over the Gaza city entirely. And we are now working in some areas that were left, as Amir said, in Sajaiya, that is part of Gaza, and then Jabalia, that is a refugee camp, a very big refugee camp, and the village north of Gaza, northeast of Gaza. We are still operating over there, but with the fact that we are operating there now is a part of the maneuver, the very smart maneuver that we have adopted. Instead of facing Jabalia and Sajaiya in the first round, starting from there, as they probably expected us to operate, we came to the heart of the city from the north and from the south, and started folding the city from the west instead of folding it from the east. And this came as a surprise to Hamas and enabled us to do all kinds of things that were totally unexpected by the Hamas, like entering Shifa hospital and other places in Gaza, all the key strongholds of Hamas in the heart of Gaza. Hamas was surprised also by the fact that we showed this unbelievable unity and determination to fight. And there's this enthusiasm in Israel about fighting. And this is something they thought that we are so weak that it's not going to happen. And the war that we are fighting now in Gaza is first on the ground, and secondly on this issue of the ceasefire. And as Amir said, the main point about the ceasefire is that to what extent it's going to change the Israeli war goals, the goals of the war. We have put forward 3 goals that we believe go together. But in fact, many people believe that there is some contradiction between them, and that they can play on these contradictions in order to force us to change the goal number 1, which is defeating Hamas and depriving it from its terroristic and military capabilities and from its position as the ruler of Gaza. That's the goal number 1, and on that there is a big fight, because Hamas believes, together with Hezbollah, together with the Iranians, together with the Houthis, together with the Iraqi militias in Iraq, the Iraqi militias that are committed to Iran, to attack American bases. All of these groups, together, by the way, with Qatar and Turkey as well, because Hamas is a special case that is part of the Iran-led axis, but it's also a part of the Muslim Brotherhood axis that is comprised of, amongst others, of Turkey and Qatar. So all these elements want to convince President Biden to put pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to change this goal of the war and be happy with the heavy damage it is already inflicted on Hamas, but leave it in place. And they believe that with the game they play with the hostages, they're gaining a ceasefire, that would then be extended and just bring about a change in the goals of the war from an Israeli point of view. The other two goals, of course, are releasing the hostages and creating a situation in Gaza in which there's never going to be any kind of terroristic threat from Gaza to the people of Israel living in anywhere, including in the area close to the Gaza Strip. So
if we can maybe
this is where we
focus
stand
now on the hostages, what do you anticipate is going to be discussed this evening in the government? What do you think the proper thing would be in terms of any type of hostage negotiation?
Well, these are two separate questions.
Sure,
one is informative, the other one is qualitative. What I think is going to be discussed is the deal that everybody talks about. I guess this is the deal. It's, I believe, the press, which says that we are going to get 50 hostages, at least 50 hostages. In return, we are going to release 140, 150 women and children that are arrested in Israeli jails because they were involved in terror activities. These people are going to be released to wherever they choose to go. And so it means either Gaza or the West Bank or out of the area at all. They can go to Qatar if they like. This is the exchange. On top of that, Israel is going to be committed to cease the fire for a few days. Most reports speak about 5 days. And there's also a demand by Hamas that while we cease the fire, we should also not use reconnaissance air vehicles for at least part of the day, part of the time. That is a commitment that it's very difficult for us to swallow, because we need this collection to have the information and intelligence we are so much in need of. And the other thing is that this is more important for the Americans than for the Hamas, I think. But we should be requested to bring in humanitarian support for the people that are still in Gaza, and that would include also some fuel. I'm not sure about how much. So this is what's at stake. Whether we're going to get it or not, to accept it or not. Look, I can give you the long list of reasons why we shouldn't, okay? As Samir said, he doesn't like it. Nobody in Israel likes it. I don't think that you will find anybody here in Israel who likes this deal. But we do get 50 children and women that are held in the hands of Hamas. And I guess this is the people that are going to be released. I hope that these people are going to be released. And as many of them is the better, because just think of these cruel minds that these people have, that they keep babies and toddlers in their captivity. It's beyond imagination. So I'm really worried about these people, and we want them out. So, and you can't get them for free, unfortunately. So that's part of the deal. We should not let Hamas have fuel. That is something that we said all along the way, and we should make sure that this fuel doesn't reach Hamas in the tunnels. If we want to clear the tunnels in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, we need to make sure that they don't get the fuel, because this will force them to get out of there and leave the tunnels in a short while. Humanitarian aid is no problem other than fuel. That's no problem, because we are not going to starve the population of Gaza. We let humanitarian aid go in anyhow. The intelligence element is problematic. We shouldn't pay that. But I tell you what I feel. I was involved in many of the hostages deals that Israel was making. In most of the cases, I was against. There was one case I was in favor, in most of the cases I was against. But I always saw how terrible it is to be in the shoes of those people who actually have to take the decision. It's so difficult. The pressure coming from the families, the pressure coming from the Americans, the pressure is coming from everybody else who wants wants you not to make it or wants you to make it. It's a crazy situation for everybody who has to make a decision. They took it upon themselves. They volunteered. Nobody forced them, but it's a very difficult task. And we have to remember one thing. The most important thing for us in this deal, besides releasing the hostages, is to make sure that the United States remains with us, committed to not changing the goals of the war, that we should be able to resume the military activities after the pause or the ceasefire, whatever you call it. And this is the main thing. And I think this is the main consideration of the Prime Minister, why he decided to he looks as if he wants to go for that, because I think he believes that this is necessary in order to make sure that the United States stays the course and continues to support Israel's activities.
I believe you wrote something recently, and I apologize if I got this wrong, about allowing Sinwar free escape in return for hostages. I don't know if that was you who wrote that, but what are your thoughts on that?
I didn't write it, but I was quoted as saying so. Yes, that's true. Yes, what I said was that whereas the original plan of the Hamas by abducting the hostages was that this is going to be a part of changing the equation, as they call it, and putting Israel under a lot of pressure and releasing all the terrorists who are in Israeli prisons in exchange for the hostages, and doing all kinds of other stuff, strengthening the Iranian-led axis, lifting the siege over Gaza, and all these kind of things that were planned under Hamas operation. This is why they carried that out. And of course, devastating the Israeli self-confidence and breaking it. While this was the original plan, because Hamas was very surprised by the way Israel reacted by adopting far-reaching goals of defeating it, and by uniting all of a sudden, and by mending within one day all the problems that kept us away from. Just 1 second, I have to answer a phone. Just 1 second, sorry.
We'll go to General Avivi if you're still with us, General Avivi, for some final comments.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Moshe. I think that I'm looking at how things are developing, and then really the most disturbing thing here is making sure that we don't abandon the goals of war. If Israel doesn't eradicate Hamas completely, if we don't take over the whole Gaza Strip, this is going to be devastating. I don't think this is what's happening. I think the government is and the army understand that we need to get the job done. But Hamas is trying to play with us and trying to really find ways to stop the momentum. And this is a very moment for the cabinet to make sure that they remember we are in a war. And first and foremost, we need to win the war decisively and act very, very wisely in the way we handle the issue of the hostages. We want to bring everybody home. We do. It's part of the goals of war. But it needs to be in the context of the overall mission to win this war decisively. Thank you, Moshe. To everybody.
Let me just finish what I said. Okay, Moshe. Sorry. What I was saying was that Hamas was surprised, and because of that, they changed the purpose for which they hold the hostages. Where originally this was what I described was the goal. Now the purpose of holding the hostages is survival, surviving the Israeli operation, and trying to convince Israel to change the goal of defeating Hamas. And what I said was that if after we defeat Hamas and Sinwar is left somewhere in the dark of the tunnel, and he wants to save his life, and in return for that, he's ready to give those hostages which were not released by then. We can afford letting him survive for the hostages. But we shall defeat Hamas. We never said that defeating Hamas means necessarily killing Sinwar, although we would like very much to do that. Make no mistake. But if this is the price we shall have to pay for saving the hostages, we can consider that. That's what I said actually. I said we can consider that.
Thank you. Thank you, General, for being with us, for sharing all of this with us. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers for tuning in to this briefing. We will plan to be with you again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We are going to be joined by another member of the IDSF Research Department, Ori Sachar, who has been on these briefings before. He's going to do a deep dive into some of the broader geopolitical issues impacting this war, particularly with regards to Russia. So stay tuned tomorrow. And thank you, of course, to our generals, General Mir Avivi, General Yossi Kuperwasser. Stay safe, everyone. Stay strong. Take care.
Thank you.